Representative Lee, we will now move House File 1135 to the Climate and Energy Policy. I will move that House File 1135 be re-referred to the Climate and Energy Finance and Policy Committee. Representative Lee, I understand you brought the DE2 amendment. I will move your DE2 amendment for, would you like to explain that, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The DE2 amendment adds how future weather trends can be integrated into the design and evaluation of buildings and how future weather trends may impact our natural systems and the need for infrastructure to maintain and increase our food and wood production, reduction of fire risk on forested land, maintain and enhance our water quality, and maintain and enhance our natural habitats.
Thank you. So I will move adoption of the DE2 amendment. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion prevails. All right, now we have House File 1135 as amended before us. Representative Lee, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I do have two testifiers here from the University of Minnesota, and so I will briefly explain why I'm bringing this forward. You know, I have started on the Capital Investment Committee for the last 5 years now, and you know, ever since that time, when we go out and tour the entire state of Minnesota, you see the impact that extreme weathers have had on our infrastructure, whether that's, you know, natural systems for flood hazard mitigation, or actually looking at, you know, some of our, you know, buildings. And so that really makes me think, you know, how much have we spent on some of these infrastructure projects that's, you know, relating to you know, increased rainfall, increased flooding. You know, for example, what I always talk about, you know, in the Red River Basin alone from 1997 to 2018, the state of Minnesota has given out a total of around $368 million for flood hazard mitigation. And this year, the Red River Basin is coming back to ask for $73 million. That's about 20% of the total that was spent in that area from 1997 to 2018. And so I think that, you know, we really need to look at how does extreme weather really impact our infrastructure so that we can make smart and sound fiscal decisions as we plan our capital budget. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll turn it over to the two testifiers.
Welcome to the committee. If Professor Richard Graves and Dr. Jessica Hellman would like to come up and testify, please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members, and thank you, Representative Lee, author of this bill, for inviting us here today. My name is Jessica Hellman. I'm the director of the Institute on the Environment and a professor in the College of Biological Sciences at the University of Minnesota. My colleague Richard Graves and I are here to talk about changing climate in our state and about how research could help us make smart investments and in our infrastructure and smarter operations of that infrastructure under a dynamic and changing future. And given that this is our area of expertise and we think about these financial components and operational pieces, we really applaud your desire to understand the changes affecting our public infrastructure and your commitment to stewarding buildings, energy, water, and other assets into the future. So Minnesota's climate is already changing, and it will continue to do so for the foreseeable future. In this graphic from the Minnesota DNR depicts some of the qualities of a changing climate in Minnesota. Temperatures are already increasing, particularly to date in the winter and at night, and larger, more frequent precipitation events and storms are occurring, as we just heard, and also winter is getting shorter. Warming and heavy downpours are affecting our natural resources, agricultural lands, and our cities. And in the decades ahead, we expect to see this warming trend continuing, with more temperature increases appearing increasingly in the summer and during the daytime, and also bringing dry spells and heat waves. For example, this graphic shows historic annual precipitation in Minnesota, and there's a lot of variability in our weather. But the blue line shows an upward trend since, in this graph, 1895, such that we have 3.5 inches more rainfall or snow per year now than we did 100 years ago. And this trend will continue into the future, and the upward line will steepen if climate change proceeds unabated. In addition to precipitation, Minnesota has warmed an average of 5 degrees Fahrenheit, with the warmest and wettest years occurring in recent decades. All but 2 years since 1970 have been warmer, wetter, or both warmer and wetter than the historic average. And all of the 10 warmest and wettest years on record have occurred recently, between 1998 and 2020. The shape and pace of this trend moving forward depends on greenhouse gas emissions, but some of that change is already locked into the system, the changes we have experienced so far. This is the new climate that we live with, and that we need to manage. Our systems are built in natural environment within. So I'd like to pass to my colleague, Professor Richard Graves, who will talk about the challenges that these climatic changes present to our built environment.
Welcome to the committee, Mr. Graves.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the question is, not whether the climate's changing, how it's changing, but I think for this committee, the challenge is, given those changes, what's the impact on infrastructure, and how can we design infrastructure in a smarter, more thoughtful, more cost-effective way? So I'll talk of two examples that we would like to research further, with this bill. One is historically, design for site, water, and road design has focused more on riverine flooding for severe events and moderate rainfall flooding. And as we can see in this map from the Met Council, given the increased precipitation, both on average but also in localized flooding, more and more localized flood events or flood sheds when we have these high rain events are just as significant, and we need to be designing around as we continue to think about increased riverine flooding in the future. And this infrastructure operates at a variety of scales, from buildings to roads to lots to neighborhoods to cities to watersheds. So it's not only a road design challenge to design roadways to deal with these heavy rainfall events, but also when it comes to capital construction, how are the sites of capital construction projects designed to absorb higher rain events and mitigate some of this flooding, and also reduce the impact on some of the state-funded funded infrastructure. In addition, my center did a study for MPCA in 2018 where we looked at given future weather, future weather patterns, and we used future weather predictions from a group in the UK called WeatherShift. And the challenge in building design is right now, building designers, architects, engineers, when they're designing a building, we will use historic weather files, and these weather files at best are 10 to 15 years old and look 10, 15 years into the past to determine what are the design intent for building projects. However, when you look at these forward predicted models of weather files, they seem to predict closer to what some of the weather patterns might be that we need to be integrating into building design. So you might say, who cares? Why does this even matter? And so what we saw in some of this study is in the downscale data from the UK for Minnesota, that what we saw as a pattern was increased heating in the summers, which required some buildings to consider sun shading to avoid cooling costs that we've never really had to do in Minnesota historically. So that's a design strategy that's becoming potentially needed to be integrated into projects. And then an increased emphasis in cooling and dehumidification systems and mechanical systems to deal with those potential new weather events. So we believe, that's important not only to address the changes, but also so building designers designing for capital construction can develop more cost-effective designs and not be wasting money on strategies that are the strategies of the historic weather event, and be investing in strategies about our future challenges. So, the research that's needed is really to think about applying new and emerging downscale climate data to Minnesota, not from the data we were getting from the UK, but using data that's emerging at the University of Minnesota and the Minnesota Climate Adaptation Partnership. They're doing some downscale data for agriculture that we think we can leverage for the built environment. Also looking at modeling the impact of changing climate on energy efficiency and design. Again, how can we design those systems so that they're more cost effective? Understanding these impacts on site and water design to increase resilience at various scales, building scale, roadway scale, city scale, the entire kind of stormwater infrastructure. And then also, we believe there's additional research needed to assess these additional risks and impacts, to develop the role infrastructure can play to reduce those impacts. Things like improving construction standards on the way we put roofs on, the way we put walls together, to address some of the challenges we heard from the previous testifier in the insurance industry. They're actually simple, low-cost, no-cost ways of just changing installation patterns that can reduce some of those damage costs over time. So thank you, Madam Chair, thank you, committee, and thank you, Representative Lee.
Thank you very much. With that, we will turn it to member questions. Representative Igo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess my first question for this report that we'll be getting, and this is probably for both of you, for this report we're getting, what will be the margin of error on the research for these projections?
Professor Graves?
Yes, definitely, you'd get margin of error, because these predictions for the projections, and then also even when we integrate them into design modeling, we will identify if there are margins of error, depending upon the thing that we're working on.
Representative Igo?
And I just want some clarification on that, because when we talk about this kind of stuff, it's all statistics, right? Then it's compounding, and if you go out years in advance, your margin of error dramatically grows. And I just think that's going to be really important to show in here, because that's why you have so many climate models that say we're going to be at this point, or we're going to be way down here, because it's statistics, and frankly, it baffles the human mind when we talk about statistics. So, but my last question I wanted to ask, and this is more for you, Representative Lee. I was wondering if the bill could consider adding an amendment that would do something around making sure that we have manufacturing and supply chains to coincide with their findings.
Representative Chair Lee?
That's a conversation that we could have offline, Representative Igo, and as we move the bill forward.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Anderson?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'll be quick. The bill title deals with public infrastructure, again on line, to the bill author. On lines 120 to 123, you're talking about food production, forested land, water quality, and natural habitats. What's the connection?
Chair Lee?
Thank you for that, Representative. I think the connection there is that when we're out there hearing from different communities, for example, the city of Windham, they were talking about how they want infrastructure funding from the state of Minnesota with their stormwater issue, because they're in the drainage area of about 422 acres of farming land that has been tiled, and so there's increased waterfall coming into the city, so that's why they're coming to the state for infrastructure funding. And so I think that we need to take a holistic approach and look at some of these natural systems, and as to why we are asking the state of Minnesota to invest in these local infrastructure.
Representative Anderson? All right, well, with that, Representative Franzen?
Madam Chair, I move to table this bill so that we can have a detailed discussion on the impacts of this bill as amended. As you know, that we're being in a rush to get to session. I can't possibly imagine us having anything but more presentations next week, so I don't see any harm in tabling this bill until next week so that members can ask questions. I'm very interested in myself why we are giving a $690,000 line item grant to the Institute on the Environment when we know that there has been issues with the Institute on Environment with a certain member who shall go unnamed, where a position handwritten for that individual for a position there. And I don't know why we can't have, per se, maybe the Center for American Experiment instead line item. So I think that
All
we
right.
need to table
We're
this bill,
gonna-
have a
yep.
discussion next
We're
week.
going to vote then.
Then
So-
I'd like a roll call.
Okay, so the clerk will take the roll. Oh, we're voting so the motion is to table this bill. So it's a
Chair Cagle.
no.
Chair Cagle, no. Vice Chair Curran.
No.
Vice Chair Curran, no. Lead Franson.
Yes.
Lead Franson, yes. Representative Acomb.
Acom, no.
Acomb, no. Representative Gilman.
Gilman, yes.
Gilman, yes. Representative Hornstein.
No.
Representative Hornstein, no. Representative Igo.
I go aye.
Representative Igo, aye. Representative Kraft.
No.
Representative Kraft, no. Representative Ream.
Ream, no.
Representative Ream, no. Representative Schultz.
Aye.
Representative Schultz, aye. Representative Smith.
No.
Representative Smith, no.
We still have a member here.
Sorry,
Oh, Representative Anderson.
how did I miss that? Sorry, I totally skipped. Representative Anderson.
That's okay. Anderson, aye.
There being 5 ayes and 7 nays, the motion does not prevail. So with that, I will renew my motion
And I'd like
to
a roll call on the bill.
roll call being requested. I renew my motion to re-refer House File 1135 as amended to the Climate and Energy Finance Policy Committee. The clerk will take the roll.
Chair Cagle.
Aye.
Chair Cagle, aye. Vice Chair Curran.
Aye.
Vice Chair Curran, aye. Lead Franson.
No.
Lead Franson, no. Representative Acomb.
Aye.
Representative Acomb, aye. Representative Anderson.
Anderson, no.
Representative Anderson, no. Representative Gilman.
Gilman, no.
Representative Gilman, no. Representative Hornstein.
Aye.
Representative Hornstein, aye. Representative Igo.
No.
Representative Igo, no. Representative Kraft.
Aye.
Representative Kraft, aye. Representative Ream.
Ream, aye.
Representative Ream, aye. Representative Schultz.
No.
Representative Schultz, no. Representative Smith.
Aye.
Representative Smith, aye.
There being 7 ayes and 5 nays, the motion prevails, and you are on your way to Climate, Energy, and Finance. What was it? As amended.